This is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, GOG. Let's go. What do you think tonight?
You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the
Let's
Warriors.
go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not- no, and-
recently he's
and
putting
hold
up
on,
games
hold on.
like
above our head for the players.
literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do.
And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me tonight, Griffin Aldridge and Andrew Quinn. Of course, guys, the Boston Celtics take home a win on the Garden floor, rebounding from a putrid loss the other night against the Miami Heat. Tonight, the Boston Celtics take home a 20-point win over the Phoenix Suns, defeating Phoenix 123-103. But guys, you've been on this show before. Initial thoughts. We'll start with you, Griffin.
I just thought ultimately this is a great game. Obviously the Suns, there's a lot of struggle there in Phoenix. It's if you're a Suns fan, it's just disappointing. I mean, going to the finals in 22, I want to say, was it 20? No, that's when the Celtics won.
21.
21. Going there, losing that, heartbreaker. You know, you get Durant, Bradley Beal. You think, oh, look, like we're gonna be in a contender now. We're like in mention to go to the finals, and you're this bad. It's awful if you're in Phoenix. There's a lot of rumors of Durant leaving, Devin Booker, a lot of stuff up in the air. So that's definitely a toxic organization right now. But the Boston Celtics ultimately went in there and got their job done. It's giving playoff vibes. I love the intro because it got me all hyped up, and it's like I'm just ready for playoffs to start. I'm ready. I want to see playoffs start. I'm excited for playoff action. It's a time where, and I don't know if I'm the only person, but like I get sidetracked from watching the games because I'm like, I want to have meaningful games where I'm hyped up, hitting my desk, getting all excited, jumping up and down. You know, obviously I'm a big Celtics fan, so that's just how I am in general. But like, I'm ready for that taste of playoffs. Ultimately, though, good game. Great performance. Obviously, we'll get into it later by Jaylen Brown. And I'm sure we'll get into it later with KP and just his love for Boston. I love the crowd tonight when he was exiting out tonight. It was incredible. Just overall, a great team win. And that's what you want to see if you're a Boston Celtics fan. You want to see these good team wins moving forward. This might be, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like there will be a few more games where you have your full team playing, but this might have been one of the last games where at least the full team's playing or giving them their full minutes. I feel like you're going to start seeing kind of people sit more so and kind of get that rest for playoffs, but ultimately I'm happy to see it. Great to see all the guys on the floor getting their job done, and that intensity was great all game long, and I love to see it. Great win from Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and to follow with that, for one, the Phoenix Suns obviously are having their struggles, and I think it speaks to the fact that super teams are hard to win with. You know, you have a lot of guys that want the ball. You have a lot of mouths to feed, and very often they don't really fall into place how you want them to. So I think it just goes to show how the Celtics and Brad Stevens have built the team from the ground up, having their star players mature with the team, and now we're seeing the fruits of it. From the game tonight, I really liked how Boston was able to respond from losing against Miami. You know, they didn't have their best defensive game in Miami. The intensity was low, but today they took it up a notch. They ratcheted up on the defensive end, and they just really showed a lot more energy than the last game. And I think that's so important for this team to show. And I think it speaks to Joe Mazzulla and his ability to not let the Celtics lose their focus on the present moment and the task at hand. So I'm really happy to see the results from tonight. And I think it just shows that the Celtics are really in a good spot.
Did you guys just hear that in the background?
Is that the rain? Hey.
No. Did you hear the thunder?
Oh, that was thunder now.
The thunder. Oh, I was going to say, if you guys could hear the thunder, I'm like, we can't go up post game without mentioning thunder at some point in time. We just can't.
Yeah,
you live here, tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever you got.
But the Thunder, they're right there. They keep knocking on the door, but it's
that's
like
literally for me right now. I have literal thunder knocking at my door. That's the difference.
The basketball gods are like, you can't ignore the Thunder.
Are you
a different talking point?
Are you gonna beat the Thunder though?
Am I?
Yeah.
Am I or the Celtics? We're both. Okay.
Both.
We're both defeating the Thunder. You know why? Because the Thunder, they have not been there before. They haven't been there before like the Boston Celtics. And a particular person who's been there before with the Boston Celtics is our man Kristaps Porzingis. And this is also what the Celtics have, in which the Thunder do not have, is that toughness, folks. Yep. That toughness. All right. Now, Kristaps Porzingis, the injury update during the game. We all saw it happen on floor. Kristaps Porzingis hit in the face, had to come off, and the way he came off, I wish we had the video for you guys and could attain the rights to it, because it was a great moment. It was a great moment of the season where Kristaps playing a little fun with the crowd and really everybody on the bench as well. Got hit in the face, starts bleeding everywhere, and then comes off the floor and starts hyping up the crowd, kind of gives the bench that mean mug. And we see here the graphic, Kristaps Porzingis there, he's bleeding. That's a couple screenshots from TV tonight, and the injury update as we saw on screen previously. Questionable to return. Kristaps Porzingis, of course, did not return in this game. Cut to nose, requiring stitches. We saw him return to the floor, not necessarily the game, but the actual parquet floor on the bench, and he did have those stitches in his nose. Kristaps, I mean, he's looking like a boxer. He's looking like Ivan Drago going into the playoffs now with 5 games remaining on the schedule. Kristaps Porzingis sustaining that. Is that an injury? Is that technically an injury, guys? It's an injury, but it's more of a scratch for this Boston Celtics club.
Can I, for one, to respond to your question, I that's some battle scars, and that's what I love, how he was his intensity about that was just get the fans hyped up, and that shows how dominant and aggressive we are going to be in playoffs. But from my perspective too, I want to say this. I'm sure I've said this on the postgame show before, but last year when I went to TD Garden, got to see Porzingis play for the first time, I say this over and over again. He had his coffee cup pregame, and he leaves, obviously shoot around, and he's cheersing the cup to the fans. Boston loves him. You gave up a heart and soul in Marcus Smart for KP. KP is filling those shoes. Have you ever, the only time I could remember where Marcus Smart, obviously his return to Boston, but got a huge standing ovation like Kristaps Porzingis, was when he got injured, came back injured during that game. But Boston loves KP. And I think that's another reason. Obviously, we don't have to get into it much, but people like to say, oh, let's trade KP. Let's trade KP. He's the heart and soul of this team. I don't know why people even wrap that thought around their mind. Like everyone loves him here. He's a town hero. He's like one of those, you give him a Marcus Smart role. He originally came right into Boston. He loved the fans, and the fans love him. He's a town hero here. He really is.
Now, with KP becoming See, this is where I hesitate. Was that really an injury? Was he really injured? It's more of a scratch, more of a cut on his face, but technically an injury. It had to be, he had to be listed on the injury report but with KP becoming injured tonight, we do see 5 games left on the schedule for the Boston Celtics. 2 at the end against Charlotte. We have one against the Washington Wizards up on the horizon at home. 2 on the road against the New York Knicks and the Orlando Magic. So Washington, New York, and Orlando. And then we come back home, face Charlotte for those last 2 games. Tonight, the Boston Celtics, they omitted a healthy lineup for the first time since February. A completely healthy rotation. Nobody was on the injury report coming into this game. Of course, on the other side for the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant. No Kevin Durant for this game. Might as well note that early on in this broadcast. But the Boston Celtics, with KP at the end there, sustaining the injury to his face. Griffin, you already kind of answered this, weirdly enough, in your initial thoughts, because I was going to ask, is this the last game of the season before game 1 of the playoffs where we see the entire rotation healthy? Griffin, you seem to think that this will be the last game as we're going to rest guys moving forward. But what do you think about this, Andrew?
I'd agree. I think, yes, Jaylen Brown had a insane performance. I mean, he put it all out there, but you could see him limping, kind of walking gingerly occasion on the court. He looked like he had that pop to his step. He looked like he had that bounce, but you have to imagine after the game he had that knee is not going to be bothering him even slightly. And I love that Jaylen Brown is saying, screw the injury. I got a home game tonight. I'm going to put on for the fans, and I'm going to continue to fight. But you got to imagine that seeing Jaylen Brown limping a little and getting the minutes that he did, I'd assume he's going to take some time off towards the latter half of the regular season. So that's my perspective on that one.
Yeah,
Griffin?
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. Andrew, I obviously watched the game, but I wasn't like locked in like that. I didn't notice that. And that kind of strikes some concern for me. Not a lot, but I would say, honestly, I feel like he's doing it. You might have said, yeah, he's doing it for the home crowd, but at the same time, he wants to be in contention for awards this season. I don't know how many more games he has to be in it. Is it the rest of the season? I'm not sure how many exactly, but that could also be another factor. But awards at the end of the day, if you got to play for your health, man. And that's what Jason Tatum does. I mean, Jason Tatum could go out there, be selfish and drop who knows how many points a night, but he passes the ball because he knows his good team. And I'm not saying Jaylen Brown is selfish. I love Jaylen Brown. I'm just saying that if it obviously is alarming, I would shut him down till playoff start. Just because I think that's smart. Like you want your full team healthy going into playoffs. What are your thoughts though, Seamus?
Yeah, so to clarify this, and Griffin, I think you actually brought up an excellent point there about Jaylen Brown's games, because Jaylen Brown needs to play, let's see, this game tonight, he needs to play 4 of the next 5 games.
You
4 of the next 5.
You can't
to become eligible for awards. So he's sitting at 61 games after tonight. His basketball reference says 60. I was going to say add 1 to that after tonight. Isn't updated yet. So 61 after tonight's game. That means 4 more until he gets to 65. 5 games left on the schedule. 65 puts him at the threshold in which you need as a player to attain awards after the season. You need to play 65 of 82 games. Jaylen Brown, he's at game number 61 right now. I think there's definite incentive in that, Griffin. I think there's 100% incentive in wanting to play 4 out of the next 5. Yeah, I would expect him typically to play 4 of the next 5. You could say, and see, this is where I actually see it too. Given what he looked like tonight, is there a problem with Jaylen Brown and his knee? That's one question I ask. But the other part I ask with this is, how serious is it? And what can you do to manage that the next 5 games other than just sit him, period? And if you're just sitting him, period, what's that going to set the precedent of when it comes to game 1 of the NBA playoffs? Is he going to be ready to go by the time that comes around? I'm not so certain. But considering Jaylen Brown was out there tonight, and we can even talk about him further in a little bit here, because, I mean, he had a great night, 31 points on the night. You see him on the top of the screen, but 4 of the next 5 is realistic to me, especially from the standpoint of you can miss a game. I mean, Jaylen Brown can miss one game. So that's one that you're marking off there. Say one of the Charlotte games he misses. The New York Orlando game, you could see him playing in that one. But then say the other game, the Washington Wizards, maybe he checks in, maybe he plays 10, 15 minutes in that one. Maybe the Celtics go and experiment with different rotations. And then you have another Charlotte game, maybe he does the same thing in that game. And maybe the ramp up games are against New York, against Orlando, on the road. And so that's where I look at Jaylen Brown right now and go, he's going to try and get to that 65 game mark, but I don't think it's as serious as, oh no, he has to play 4 more games out of the next 5 and he's not ready to with his knee. I think in some of these games, he's going to check in, play 10, 15 minutes and check out. And that's just how it's going to go. And I think you could see a scenario where he plays the next 3 against the Wizards, against the Knicks, against the Magic, and then the last 2 of the season, you see him miss 1, and then he checks in maybe last game of the season for 10 minutes, and then the rest of the bench gets a run after that. That could be the plan with Jaylen Brown moving forward. Go ahead, Griffin.
So I wanted to ask you about this. There's obviously an issue. Now, it's not issue, but it's a lot of toll on NBA two-way players. So a question I want to ask you guys as well is obviously the main Celtics, I think in 1 or 2 days, they go on to face the Magic's G League team. And if they win that, they go to the G League finals. But a thing I wanted to ask you guys is like, a lot of those players this is a portion in the season where you're gonna rest your starters. So what do you think about that whole aspect of sending Walsh? They've been sending Walsh down. JD's been coming up as well. Drew Peterson. So those three have been going down and coming back up. What are your thoughts, like correlating to the end of the season and like how they're supposed to be preparing for playoffs, doing their NBA finals stuff, G League finals, and then at the same time expected to play up at the big show with the Celtics when having to rest people? What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, for me, I think these guys, the main Celtics specifically, the names you're talking about, they could potentially get a run with the Celtics at the end of the season. I think you're going to see opportunity in the Charlotte games at home, 100%. The next game against the Washington Wizards, that could be a game where they slot into it and play major minutes in. Even the road games, you never know how those games against New York and Orlando are going to go because those could be playoff opponents for the Boston Celtics. And in those scenarios, Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff, they might not want to they might not want to give up some of their better ran sets in that game or some of their lineups in which they feel comfortable with winning in the playoffs. I think they could go to a more rogue style, again, experimenting with different lineups in those scenarios. It's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics approach the last 5 games of the season because you could approach it in many different ways considering where the team's at right now. But even talking about some of the main Celtics, I think another aspect of what's good about them going to the G League, back to the team, back up to the G League, playing in the G League playoffs, and actually playing with the real team at the same time. What's great about that is that actually simulates the schedule for themselves in the NBA because they're not playing as many games in the G League as they are in the NBA. But even under that circumstance, in the NBA, you're going to have back-to-backs. In the NBA, you're going to have a stretch. We're going to see it in the playoffs. This is how the playoffs work, and this is why the playoffs are so grueling is at the end of the season, the NBA slots in a tiny 30-game season into a span of 2.5 months. That's what they do. And it's every other day. It's every other day. And it's some of the hardest basketball on earth these guys are playing in the NBA, in the NBA playoffs. And it's coming every other day. They don't have 2 games. It's very rare in the NBA playoffs for a team to have 2 games off, or sorry, 2 days off in those scenarios. And the G League guys specifically, having that little end of the season schedule where they're playing in the playoffs and also playing on the professional level, I think that prepares them for the professional level as they go on in their careers because we all know the main Celtics, what's unique about the Celtics and their G League team right now is they're both good. As you know, Griffin, I mean, this is very rare to have a great basketball team and still have a great, what is now becoming, let's face it, in the NBA, a great farm system. I mean, we always talk about farm systems with baseball, but that's kind of what we're seeing with the NBA now. I mean, the Celtics, look at how many players who either slotted into their farm system, which is, of course, the main Celtics, or other teams' farm systems that are now on the roster. We think of guys like Kada, Cornette, Sam Hauser, Baylor Shireman this season going through that. I know I'm missing a name here on the list of players, but I mean, those are just some of the few on the roster right now for the Boston Celtics who actually go and contribute on a meaningful level for the Celtics as well. But another player I will say contributed on a meaningful level tonight. That was our SeatGeek player spotlight, Jaylen Brown, who we already talked about here in regard to his injury, but we're going to talk more positively on Jaylen Brown because he comes away with his second straight SeatGeek player spotlight in a row. And don't forget to use the code Celtics Weekly at checkout of your first purchase on SeatGeek for $20 off your first purchase. Don't forget to go on SeatGeek and type in that code when you go to purchase all of your sports tickets from any venue across the United States of America. But SeatGeek tonight has us covered for player spotlight, as Jaylen Brown had the Celtics covered with his 31 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists on the night, shooting 10 of 16 from the floor as well, and 3 of 4 from 3. Super efficient night for Jaylen Brown, and he really got this game going early. There was that buzzer beating 3 he had off one leg almost at half court in the first quarter, and that feels like it set things off for the Boston Celtics. But as you guys see, Jaylen Brown here on the top of the screen, 31 points for JB. We talked about his injury just a little bit, but in terms of his performance tonight, what did you guys like out of Jaylen Brown? We'll start with you, Griffin.
I love what I saw from Jaylen Brown tonight. I mean, I think this a lot of people at Celtics Talk Weekly would disagree with me on this, but I think he's had a slow season. I mean, coming back from how he played and performed in playoffs to kind of what he's been like this season, I'm going to say he's kind of slacked off a little bit. So for him, obviously having a lot of momentum at the first part of the season, then kind of obviously when the slump hit, everyone was in a slump. But now to kind of ramp back up towards the end of the season when it matters most because playoffs are like right ahead of us, I think it's very impressive. And I think we're getting, I think we could say, obviously there's playoff Jimmy. I think we're getting a playoff Jaylen Brown. I think that's one thing we're going to see because obviously slacked off kind of a little bit in a portion of the season, obviously battling with some injuries and stuff. But now we're moving forward. He's heating back up and we're getting playoff Jaylen Brown. I'm going to give him a playoff name. He gets playoff Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I think that JB played amazing tonight. I loved how he was just consistently seeking out mismatches and just attacking off of those. And he had one play. He had a nice assist over the shoulder, looking like Magic Johnson. And I think that is a cool thing to see because, yes, Jaylen Brown is that scoring threat. But like Tatum, who has improved his role in playmaking, I think it was cool to see JB make that type of pass. I feel like in the past, JB, those passes wouldn't come as naturally to him, but to see that out of him is awesome. It just feels like he's adapting the Celtics way, and that is going to help come playoff time. So I really like what I saw from tonight, and I just think his aggressiveness is really setting the tone for the Celtics and giving them another layer to use.
Yeah, and Jaylen Brown, too, passed another milestone tonight as we see Jaylen Brown moved up on the Celtics scoring list tonight as Jaylen Brown passed Antoine Walker for the 14th spot in Celtics history on the all-time scoring list in Celtics franchise history. Jaylen Brown now owns that 14th spot all alone over Antoine Walker. You see there on the bottom of the screen that NBC Sports Boston graphic. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum not too far away from each other, but Jaylen Brown now on the tail of Tommy Heinsohn, Bill Sharman, JoJo White, of course, St. Louis native JoJo White. Got to shout out the Lou right there. Dave Cowens As you see, Jason Tatum already passing all of those names. Jason Tatum riding the heels of Bill Russell, as you see on this list, for eighth place all-time scoring for the Celtics franchise. Jaylen Brown, though, moves into that 14th slot alone in 14th over Antoine Walker tonight. And as you guys know, we've been talking a little bit about Celtics history on this program as of late. And Jaylen Brown, just in general this season, has been a little buried behind Jason Tatum. Of course, been a little buried because Jason Tatum, he's having a phenomenal season. And this is no disrespect to Jason Tatum or anything negative against Jason Tatum, but Jason Tatum, because of how good Jason Tatum's been this season, the MVP candidacy of Jason Tatum, it's kind of pushed Jaylen Brown aside in the conversation for the Boston Celtics, especially when some of the others have held the conversation as well. You know, is Derek White, can he get it going? That was the conversation earlier this season. Derek White wasn't exactly performing up to the standards in which we knew he could be at. Then he started performing well, and he was widely regarded as the floor setter. A lot of praise went towards Derek White. And then, of course, you have guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday. Are these guys going to be healthy? Al Horford as well. Are these guys going to be healthy in the playoffs? What kind of impact are they going to make? And all of this conversation surrounding the Celtics this year, it's kind of pushed Jaylen Brown to the side, whether it's been how good Jason Tatum's been, how great Peyton Pritchard's been off the bench. Some of these other guys, can they stay healthy? Can Derek White, can he get it going? Finally, when he did, we started talking about him. But Jaylen Brown, the conversation hasn't been around Jaylen Brown as much yet. He's having a fairly consistent season from the standpoint of his numbers. Now, we can see he can go back and forth within the status of his health, and he's not always within the game of basketball. He's not always shooting the ball efficiently, not always having the greatest of nights as Tatum is, but he's always making an impact on the floor on both ends of the floor. As one of the Celtics energy guys, you know, as a superstar in the NBA, it's very rare to see Jaylen Brown be an energy guy because a lot of those superstars just aren't out there in that role. But Jaylen Brown can play that role for the Boston Celtics at times. But he's been buried a little this season. However, you see there 14th all time in Celtics scoring, and there are a couple of other lists. Jaylen Brown's slowly moving up, and Jaylen Brown, he's still only in his 20s, and he still has time within the Celtics organization. His time within the Celtics organization, we think he's under contract, of course, as we'll see later on here in this broadcast, for quite a while with this Boston Celtics club. He'll have the opportunity to move up more lists, but right now, from your guys' perspective, where does Jaylen Brown rank within the greats all time of the Boston Celtics? Is he in the top 10? Is he in the top 15? Where do you guys see Jaylen Brown amidst all of the greats?
I'll say this. I looked at that list for a second too, and obviously got to shout out your guys' podcast. Obviously with that special guest Dan, I can't say his last name for a second, but anyways,
Dan Shaughnessy. Wait, let's
Yeah,
give the book a little plug here, real quick. Dan
Sorry.
Shaughnessy, Wish It Lasted Forever: Life with the Larry Bird Celtics. Everybody, go check out the book. Dan was nice enough to give us an interview the other day, and that's of course now out on YouTube on the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel. You guys can all go check it out. The CTW crew, myself, Rob, Franco, and David, all of us, we interviewed Dan Shaughnessy the other day, and this is his latest book. Came out in 2021, Wish It Lasted Forever: Life with the Larry Bird Celtics. We talk about that book and a lot more, Dan Shaughnessy. So there's the plug right there. But go ahead, Griffin, on Jaylen Brown.
I did not mean to mess up his last name, by the way. Got the retainer in, so.
Oh no, see, it's explainable.
But anyways, I just had to say, I would say this. I looked at it and I was like, wait. I thought, because obviously 14th place, I was like, wait, where's Larry Bird and everyone? I was so confused for a second, but no, makes sense. But anyways, to answer your question though, I'm gonna say not yet. I don't think he's top 10 yet. I feel like obviously we are at the scary talk where there could be some cuts with the Boston Celtics, whether trading or moving on. But if you give him to the rest of this contract, see kind of where his career can go with Boston, I say, why not? Like, of course. I feel forever, ever since his finals MVP, He's always going to be a name in Celtics history. It's undeniable. I mean, when you get a award like that, you're always in Celtics history. It's, and Jaylen Brown for the modern day, he's incredible. I mean, you see him already going up on that list. So yes, he will. I think by the time his days are over, he will be up in, I would say I would give him around like, I'd give him close to 10 right now. I would say he's knocking at the door for top 10. I think he could potentially even be in it. I would have to sit down and make a list on who exactly I think would be there, but he's very close, if not in top 10. But for sure, he could cement himself for a higher name. Even, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but depending on the rest of his career, maybe even close to top 5. Not, I don't think quite top 5, but close in mention for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough question, and I really think that the way Jaylen Brown plays and just the way he acts so professional and stays to his business and is for the team, like I do think that he can get himself, up that ranking. And I don't know, I just something, and maybe I'm going a little off track with this, but something with Jaylen Brown and just the way we've been kind of handling him, maybe not giving him the most love from time to time. It's starting to feel like we're getting this, watching Last Dance, you get this feeling of like MJ Pippen type vibe. You know what I mean? Where now we're leaning towards this thing where, as a Celtics fans and organization, we're creating this kind of, and it's not showing right now. And we're in Tatum and the Jays look like they're really well connected. They look like they care about each other. They play for each other. But you have to imagine that at some point, maybe some animosity raises. You know what I mean?
Right.
We already saw it with JB win that MVP. As much as we like to think that Tatum didn't care. Like, you got to think in the back of your mind that Tatum had a little bit of frustration behind it. So I just get sometimes nervous, and also want to make it a precedent that we got to give Jaylen Brown the same love, because I just think that he is such a pivotal part, and he lets Tatum be great. He lets Tatum find success in the court. So that can scare me sometimes. And I just want to say, and I think that having Joe Mazzulla as a coach is so important for this team, because he does such a great job at keeping it objective. I just had a conversation. I mentioned him last time, Tyler Clark, but he does a great job at being objective with the team and keep their focus on what's most important, and keeps them from getting prideful. So I hope that Joe Mazzulla can kind of create a culture and a system that prevents that from happening. But I think as Celtics fans, we have a job to continue to uplift Jaylen Brown and really appreciate what he's done for this organization and what he will continue to do.
Can I add on to that really quick? I love what you said, how kind of Scottie Pippen, MJ. I completely agree with that. I think now that times are different, like it's totally, I don't think the beef would be there, but obviously the earlier days, even as far as 2022, we are coming into the conversation. One of them has to go. That was the big talk back in 2022, is one of the Jays has to go. They can't coexist. Obviously winning Banner 18, you could tell that wasn't the fact, but I agree with that thought. And I feel like a lot of, and Seamus, you kind of already mentioned it too, but from Andrew's standpoint, Scottie Pippen and MJ, a lot of Jaylen Brown's achievements have been brushed under the bus, because we'll call Tatum MJ. He's the hero in Boston. So people look at that and they're like, kind of, all right, but Jaylen Brown can still do that. So I love your take that you just had, because it's completely true. It's
and one more thing, I just think Tatum, coming from, the Duke background,
yeah,
he just has this
versus Cal Berkeley.
Yeah, like he just has more of this publicity
Mhm.
He gets more clicks.
That's that is
Aura.
what
There
is
you
called
go.
aura.
He has aura.
Aura.
He has aura. All the haters out there, he has aura. Because if you weren't giving him click, if we weren't bringing Tatum above Brown, then there's a reason people do that, because he does give you clicks. He gives you more.
Oh, for sure.
But Jaylen Brown gives you the intangibles, the everything, So I know, Seamus, I'm sure you have something to add on to that.
Well, first of all, I don't know what I want to get into first. I will say this, okay? Two things. So Jaylen Brown, in the historical Celtics argument, I think he's around 15 to 20 right now. Because
I would say that's reasonable.
15 to 20, because I'll name these guys, all right? Just in terms of Celtics history. And I want to make this clear as well. Because, again, plugging the Dan Shaughnessy interview, when we were talking to Dan Shaughnessy the other day, something he mentioned was, well, Tatum, I mean, he's a better basketball player than Bob Cousy was. I mean, even an old timer like that is acknowledging, like, okay, guys today are way more skillful than guys back in the 60s or 70s. That being said, I mean, take out just the standards of skill and put in the standards of winning, right? Bob Cousy is one of the most winning Celtics ever. So you have to put him up there. You have to, well, first of all, you have Larry Bird, you have Bill Russell. I mean, that's 1 and 2, 1A, 1B, however you want to slot it in there. That's just Celtics history. You have Bob Cousy, that makes 3. You have to put John Havlicek up there, all-time leading scorer, the 6th man of the year award that Pritchard might win this year. I mean, 5 games left. He's been favorited. He's been the favorite all season. But you have John Havlicek in there. That's at least what, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys.
Is Tatum there at least at 5?
I mean, I would say Tatum is up there. We'll just throw him in there. I'm not going to throw him at 5, but I'll say he's in there. So let's make 5. I mean, he's above Jaylen Brown right now. That's what I'm saying. So if you were to slot in, I'm just saying, who is above Jaylen Brown? Dave Cowens, I think you have to put him above Jaylen Brown. He's the league MVP, 2-time champion with the Boston Celtics. You have to put him up there. Kevin McHale, 3-time champ with the Boston Celtics. You have to slot him up there. What? That's 7. I want to say that's 7, right? If you include Tatum. Tommy Heinsohn. I mean, Tommy Heinsohn went to the finals every year of his career. That's hard to duplicate now. It's kind of a standard you don't want guys to necessarily live up to, but he has to be in there. Sam Jones as well. JoJo White. So you just kind of go down the list. You could put Paul Pierce is 100% up there. I think it gets interesting when you start talking about guys like Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. Another name I'll say, Robert Parrish. He's going to be up there as well. I would say Jaylen Brown. He's in that Dennis Johnson, the Danny Ainge. You know, he could be in the Bill Sharman category. I think Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, he starts having conversations with those guys because, I mean, let's face it, Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, they have the 08 title with the Celtics, and they only have what? Ray Allen has the 08 season, the 09, 10, 11, and is he there in he's there in 12. Yes, so he's there in 12. So that's 5 years with the Celtics. KG has 6 years. I mean, Jaylen Brown, he already has what, 8 years in his career, 9 years. This is, I think, let's see, we have 17, 18, 19, 20. That's 4, 21, 5, 22, 6, 23, 7, 24, 8. So this is year 9 for Jaylen Brown. So he's playing nearly twice as long as Ray Allen next season. If he's on the Celtics next season, that's twice as long as Ray Allen. Then if he plays 12 years with the Celtics, Jaylen Brown will play twice as long with the Celtics as Kevin Garnett, and he'll still have the same amount of championships no matter what happens in the future because he has that 24 title, but he has the potential to win even more. So I think when you get into that category of player, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, I think you're saying, okay, well, Kevin Garnett was a better player than Jaylen Brown is in the entirety of his career. But if you're just talking Celtics career, you might say Jaylen Brown at his peak and what he was able to do in terms of the standards of winning, that could be ahead of Kevin Garnett. So I think Jaylen Brown is probably 15, 20, somewhere in there, and you could slot him in. I'm not a huge rankings guy anyway. You could slot guys in wherever you'd want. I usually like tiers where it's like, here's tier 1, here's tier 2. You kind of have guys middling between tiers. But in terms of rankings, that's where I see the tier aspect come out here. Is like you'd throw Jaylen Brown in that tier of Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, maybe Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, and guys like that. I would say for certain. But we do have okay. Go ahead, Griffin. Go
We
ahead.
got on Celtics Nation Rise, like we'll do a podcast. We gotta make a tier list when the season's over, like summer when we need content. We're gonna make a tier list. We got to.
Yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah, we can do that.
I think it's tough sometimes to rank players
It is
before their career comes.
over. Yeah.
No, because you don't have those statistics.
See, I always try to look at it like when we rank players before the career is over, I try to look at it like if their career were to suddenly abruptly end now.
Okay. Yeah.
And you kind of project ahead a little bit like this season, you go, okay, if they win the final. See, that's where this Celtics history, the moment in Celtics history right now is so interesting because the narrative continues to change. It either changes for where the Celtics, I mean, if you're looking at 22 and 23, I mean, 21 after 21, there was a borderline crisis going on in Celtics Nation going into 21, 22. When that team's 500, I mean, it was panic time because Brown and Tatum, it looked like that if that team went into the summer 500, Brown and Tatum could have 100%, but they could have been split up in the summer of 2022. Instead, the team made the finals that year. That changes the narrative because now all of a sudden the team looks like a team who could be favored the next year to go to the NBA finals and win it, as they were. But in 2023, we all know the Denver Nuggets came out with that title. The Celtics, they lose to the 8th seed Heat, and people are kind of back to the conversation of, okay, they're good, but can they get over the hump? Finally, they do in 2024, and these guys, this iteration of the Boston Celtics and Brown and Tatum, they put themselves into another echelon of Celtics greats. But that's where this season is so large because if the Celtics win this season, the 24-25 Celtics win the title in June of 2025, they'll be the first Celtics team to go back to back all the way back to the 1960s. I believe 68, 69. That's the last time. Yeah, can we confirm that on here? 60, 68, 69?
Correct. That was the last time they went back to back.
Right. And that's where the Celtics squad this year, if they win the title, I mean, Brown and Tatum, you are talking about putting them on the same tier as a team like the 68, 69 Celtics. And that's the last time those Celtics went back to back. A lot of great Celtics teams in between. The mid-70s Celtics, the 80s Celtics. I mean, like the late 2000s, early 2010 Celtics. None of those teams were able to go back to back. And if this team were to be able to go back to back with Brown and Tatum, I mean, that puts them into another level when it comes to winning within Celtics Nation. They'll be doing something unique. A lot of these other great teams, something they haven't been able to do. That's why right now the moment is so large. Any typical losing season, we go, I mean, or middling season, or even a season where you think you don't have a chance, those seasons aren't as big. They never really accomplish anything in NBA history other than, oh, we had a middling season. This season for the Boston Celtics, this could put Tatum and Brown and everybody involved into another category of Celtic greatness. And that's really what's at stake here. But of course, in order for that to happen, we need Jaylen Brown out there on the floor. And we talked about Jaylen Brown's injury, but here's an update after the game from our guy, Daniel Donabedian, who was, hey, let's do another plug on here. Daniel Donabedian, he was a guest of the program a couple weeks ago. We did an interview with him. You guys can go check that out under the CTW special playlist or the CTW podcast playlist. Go check that interview out as well. But Jaylen Brown on his hope here. Let me, I need some glasses to read this, guys. Here we go. Jaylen Brown on his hope for his health come playoff time. I bank on being even better than I feel now. So Jaylen Brown, first of all, giving us the style tonight. Look at the shades. I mean, that's also what you call aura there, guys, with the new do as well. Jaylen Brown, that is what you call aura. That is exactly what it looks like, folks. But Jaylen Brown indicates in this tweet right here and in his presser that he feels great. I mean, it seems as if he feels fine now, but he also throws in he banks on being even better. So does that to you guys, if you see that, does it I don't want to say raise concern, but does it raise a question of whether or not he's healthy? Do you guys see confidence in his answer, or do you see that kind of, I bank on being even better than I feel now? He seems as if he's indicating he feels fine now, but he also is saying he banks on feeling better. So, what are your thoughts on that, Griffin?
It's one where honestly it goes back to the KP incident we had with him tweeting. It's just a bunch of question marks. I feel like that like that's kind of like an answer where it's so hard to kind of really, I don't know, put out. But I feel this. I feel like he's so, back to my take earlier, he's so eager to get those awards and be in contention for those awards that he's kind of putting his health aside, which I don't, because I'm a huge advocate for Jaylen Brown. You guys see, like, you got the finals thing up there. Like, I love Jaylen Brown, but it's kind of selfish in a sense. Obviously, only 4 more games. Like I could see why he wants to, but at the same time, you need to be healthy going into playoffs. So it's an eyebrow, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's out of my control. Andrew.
For one question, and it's totally not, coming at you. I'm just curious. Like, has Jaylen Brown expressed like his desire for awards, or has he kind of kept it wrapped up? Like, I haven't seen it necessarily, so I'm not positive.
As a basketball player, though, Andrew, what would you do if you had 4 games left if you had to play 4 out of the 5 games left this season, but you're still injured? As a basketball player, from your perspective, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways you could go with that, right? Because, you can say, I care about my team, I want the best out of it. But as a basketball player, in another sense, like when you're injured, all you're thinking about is, I want to come back. I want to play. Whether it's a couple minutes or whether it's the whole game, you want to play. And I don't know. I don't. Jaylen Brown to me doesn't strike me as someone that that is like hungry for awards. But I completely understand the perspective and the outlook. I think that Jaylen Brown, from an injury, like from a basketball perspective, just having an injury in your head, like it seems that he's not playing carefree. Like it seems that injury is on his mind while he's playing. And so I think that is a concern, because you want 100% focus from Jaylen Brown. And obviously once the adrenaline kicks in and you start feeling good, you're fine, but you're still thinking about that injury slightly. And that means that he feels it. So whether it's bad or not, or whether it's kind of impacting him in the wrong way, I don't know. But I think it still can kind of raise an eyebrow and still kind of,
be a talking point.
Yeah, still talking point. Yeah.
Jaylen Brown, for me, looking at his situation, I couldn't tell you whether or not he cares for awards. Some guys are competitive in that sense. They understand their legacies. We think about, players out there like LeBron. He kind of understands what goes on your resume when it comes to what people talk about after your career is over. But Jaylen Brown, just looking at his situation, the Celtics are winning, period. That's just number one. The Celtics can win in many different ways, as we'll see here in a second. But the Boston Celtics are winning with Jaylen Brown. And secondly, he's paid. Jaylen Brown is paid. I mean, the contract he just signed, the richest in NBA history, he is paid. So for me, I don't see any immediate implications for this year's awards on Jaylen Brown's potential next contract, other than it would look good for another extension on top of the money he already has. But the money he has now is just, I know you shouldn't become complacent within your career ever, and you should keep striving forward. But what he has now, if he retired after this contract, I'm sure he would be completely fine. I'm sure he wants more on top of it as well. But if that were to not happen, Jaylen Brown would still be fine. But that's where it kind of comes. Is he more complacent with what he has, or is he not? I think Jaylen Brown is just going to be competitive either way, because that's within his spirit on the basketball floor. And right now, I think there's going to be a plan for Jaylen Brown moving forward to preserve him more for the playoffs and still get him to that 65 game mark, because I think some of those awards can be important within contract extensions in the future, and even what's talked about with a player after their career is over. Some guys don't really get the acknowledgement in which they should after their career just because, oh, they don't have an all-star appearance, oh, they don't have an all NBA appearance, oh, they don't have a ring. And sometimes that's very unfortunate to see. However, it's the reality that some of these guys face when it comes to themselves and being a public figure after their career's over and even during their career. But as we see here, I just want to pop this up tonight because the Sea of Green's back, folks. Forgot to show this earlier on in the show. Here's the lead tracker tonight. Wasn't really not too much to analyze within this lead tracker other than the Boston Celtics absolutely put the belt to the Phoenix Suns tonight. I mean, my goodness, 25-point lead, the biggest lead of the night for the Boston Celtics. Only 2 in that first quarter for the Phoenix Suns. The game was tied once, the longest run being 12-0 by the Boston Celtics. There were 4 lead changes in tonight's game, all happening in that first quarter. But otherwise, the Boston Celtics, this one was really no contest against the Phoenix Suns. The Sea of Green is back. It is all the way back, folks. And I'll say this. The Phoenix Suns, what we saw out of the Phoenix Suns tonight, absolutely horrendous. That team has completely given up. There was no Kevin Durant tonight, but the players who were out there for the Phoenix Suns, they didn't care to play either because Devin Booker, it was essentially the Devin Booker street ball show. And then from that standpoint, on the defensive end of the floor, everybody was just standing around, not really rotating. There was no intensity on the defensive end of the floor. Phoenix, one of the more disappointing teams we've seen in quite a while. Very indicative in this lead tracker is Phoenix. I want to remind everybody this loss for the Phoenix Suns, 20-point loss to the Celtics after a 30-point loss just a week ago. I mean, it wasn't that long ago the Phoenix Suns faced the Boston Celtics in Phoenix just a week ago. And that game, the Phoenix Suns lost by 30. This one was a 20-point loss. The Suns are still in contention for the play-in. Do they care? I have no idea. It doesn't look like it, at least not against the Celtics. And if they do care, it just shows how great the Boston Celtics are, how just horrendous the Phoenix Suns are this season. But Phoenix in that 11 spot out west right now. These kind of lead trackers for Phoenix near the end of the season, not doing anything great for themselves. However, speaking on greatness tonight, speaking on greatness. So Peyton Pritchard, when he made a three-pointer earlier tonight, and it was his 8th, or sorry, the Celtics' 8th of the night. The Celtics notched 1,364 threes as a team on the season with 5 games remaining. And at this point, it was 5.5 games remaining. That was a new NBA record. I mean, we all saw it coming. We were kind of highlighting it on post games before this, that Boston, they were moving up the rankings in terms of most threes in a season as a team. But folks, the 2025 Boston Celtics, they are officially the record holder for most threes made in a season by an NBA team in NBA history. They pass up the 2023 Golden State Warriors. As you see, the 24 Boston Celtics, last year's Celtics, came up just a bit shy, 12 three-point makes away from that first place slot last year. But the 2025 Boston Celtics make sure they get over the hump. Every team on here, 2017, 18, and beyond, as you see the 2018 Houston Rockets, the 2019 Houston Rockets, the 23 Boston Celtics down there as well, 23 Dallas on the list. But hey, the Celtics 2025 at the top by themselves, and they're going to be putting more threes on that list to solidify history. Who knows how long it'll last, because I mean the three-point ball is just prolific nowadays. But the 5 games left the Boston Celtics have on their schedule, that'll be an opportunity for the Celtics to extend this record. However, as I mentioned, not sure how long it's going to last because, oh my goodness, for the first time ever in a season, all 30 NBA teams are taking more threes per game than the 2015-2016 Warriors. Certainly the game has changed. This is from Legion Hoops, of course, and this stat to me just blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind from the standpoint of, let's just talk about the Denver Nuggets for a second. The Denver Nuggets are 30th in three-point attempts. It's seen around the league as, oh, Denver, they don't take enough threes. They don't take any threes compared to any of these other teams out there, especially the Boston Celtics. I believe Denver, if I'm not mistaken, they might be 18 three-point attempts away from the Celtics when it comes to attempts on the season. But just looking at a team like that, who's in 30th right now, back in 2015-16, they would have been taking more threes than the Phoenix Suns. I mean, how that is, or sorry, not the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Phoenix Suns, who we saw here tonight. But that is mind-boggling. We have to bring out that phrase because it absolutely is 100% mind-boggling that that is the stat going on nowadays with the NBA, that the 30th ranked team in the NBA is now shooting more threes per game than the 2015-16 Warriors, who won 73 games. And let's face it, they were seen as one of the most prolific three-point shooting teams of all time. And that stat is just I can't wrap my head around it. How much the game has changed in just 9 seasons, when we thought back in 2015, 2016 the game was already changing. Now, 9 seasons later, we're still seeing a change. We're seeing a change from a pace perspective. There's more pace. Obviously, from a space perspective, there's more spacing on the floor as well. But just the amount of threes taken, period. I mean, there's more opportunities to launch threes, and teams are not afraid to do it. As we saw, the Boston Celtics made history tonight, shooting three-pointers, making three-pointers in a season. And that other tweet came out just earlier today that every team in the NBA right now has shot more threes than the 2015-16 Warriors. Now, for you guys, now we talked about three-point attempts on the season a lot on this program, but you guys are fairly new to the program, and we haven't necessarily talked about your views, Griffin and Andrew here, your guys' views on the three-point ball from the Celtics perspective. We all know the three-point shot has increased around the league because of analytical efficiency. But in terms of how many threes the Boston Celtics club takes, are you in agreement with how many threes the Boston Celtics take? Griffin, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna say yes. I feel like it's sad because if you watch Celtic City too, you would know how much the game has changed. Like back in the day, I'm gonna mention too a little story I had where I was at the park playing basketball, and this older guy comes up to me and he was talking to me about the old basketball and how much he loved it. Big Lakers guy was talking about me about the Celtics. Super nice guy. Um, but it's true. It's changed. And I watched Celtic City and you could see how much it's changed. It's incredible. And even going back to 2015, 2016 Warriors, it's incredible how much it's changed since then, because now look at the Boston Celtics. I mean, people look at, all right, Curry and Clay for great three-point shooters. When are the Celtics going to get some recognition for, like, all right, you have Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. When are we going to hear those names? But overall, the game is evolving a lot. I mean, I'm a big guy and I have a younger brother, so I go to his basketball games a lot. You're seeing high school shoot the three ball more. You're seeing middle school shoot the three ball more. Colleges. I'm interested to hear Andrew's perspective because obviously coming from a college athlete, how much it's changing as well. The three ball is changing the game in a big way. And people are learning and perfecting that shot. And it makes you come to the question, when is there going to be a 4-point shot? When is the game going to keep evolving?
The Ruffles 4-point shot celebrity game. Got to
How
throw it
about
in.
Ruffles, baby?
You got to. But it's incredible how much the game is changing. So with that being said, with the Celtics shooting a lot of 3-pointers, obviously you all know they live and die by the three ball. But if all teams are going to shoot more than the 15 and 16 Warriors, I'm fine with the Celtics taking so many if we're going to make it and win games that way. You know, I'm fine with that. Obviously, it's a little concerning because it's like, all right, why can't we play in the paint? But the times has changed. Obviously, I've said it. Andrew, what do you think even about the Celtics and coming from a basketball perspective from your own experience?
Yeah, I think, as we know, the game evolves and there's no way to stop it. You know, guys get better. They learn from past players and they build upon it, you know? So you have this 3-point arc where people weren't shooting as much from it, but you have to find a way to implement that, you know? And there's so much more spacing that comes from playing beyond the 3-point line that really does open up the paint. And from a college perspective, spacing is so important and makes your life so much easier, you know? And partially that's part of the reason why maybe people don't see as many rough fouls or that physicality, because there's so much spacing that you can get some backdoor cuts, some easier buckets rather than really having to go grit and grind, back someone down the post and get a basket. It feels more efficient, you know? So I think teams just want to evolve and they want to win. And if you looked at that chart, a majority of those teams that are on that chart, or like the leaderboard for threes, a majority of those teams were successful teams. Those were teams that had fantastic seasons that competed and made a name for self during those seasons. So it just goes to show that if you want to win bad enough, you're going to adapt and you're going to find ways to, get to the promised land. You're going to start shooting threes. And so to see the Boston Celtics doing it the best, that's what it's all about. And, the Warriors set that precedent of shooting threes, and now teams have to chase it because they're winning. So I'm going to follow that, and I have no choice. I have no choice but to shoot threes. And now it's just become a habit, and now it is just part of the game. And who knows what's going to happen from here, maybe teams start shooting too many threes. Now I want to just get to the paint. It's a continuous evolution, and it's always changing. It's like a pendulum, I think, sometimes, and maybe we'll see that come at some point. But I just think for now, you got to stick to your guns. You got to shoot those threes. And obviously the Celtics have proven that it's a successful strategy. And one more thing, for the Celtics, you want to hone in on one thing that makes you special. Obviously you want to be a jack of all trades, but some of the most successful teams are successful at one thing, and they do it to perfection, and they come out every night and make sure that they do it to a T. And a team can know what you're going to do. One of my Coach Richards, my head coach for college, he would say this all the time. I don't care if a team knows what we're going to do. We're going to execute it the right way. You might defend it a different way, and we're going to just play chess, and we're going to attack the way you're defending us. So I just think it's such a impressive thing that the Celtics are doing, and don't change it. Don't change it.
Andrew, I absolutely love your answer there, because there is no stopping the 3-point evolution in the NBA. There's absolutely no stopping it because, first of all, we see it within the numbers. Let's actually, I'm going to get this cleared up here. The Denver Nuggets shoot 32.1 3-point attempts per game. The Boston Celtics, 48.4. So that's the difference between first and 30th in the NBA. And actually, if we go all the way back, let's go all the way back to the 2015-16 NBA season, in which was 9 seasons ago. And that's the season in question here, with, of course, that tweet we saw earlier where the Golden State Warriors, they were able to put up, or every team in the NBA is now shooting more threes per game than the Golden State Warriors. So that season, the Golden State Warriors, they shot 31.6 3-point attempts per game. So today that would rank 30th, or rather 31st, if you were to just throw that team into the field. And that really shows the 3-point evolution in today's game, the fact of just the 3-point attempts, period. But that's where math, you cannot argue with math. All right, you just can't. If the math tells you to go one way, you go that way, because it's all based on probability and statistics. If you have an edge over time and continue to follow that edge, well, if you look at your graph, right, of your return on investment, right, return of investment, it's going to go up. If you have an edge, it's going to go up over time. You're going to have losses. You're going to have games where, say, last game, the Boston Celtics, I don't remember exactly what their 3-point mark was, but they shot, in the 30s last game?
20.
I think they were, were they in the 20s?
28, I think.
Right. So 28. I was going to say, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly their number, but I'm like, I'm not even sure it was in the 30s. But that game for the Boston Celtics, they couldn't hit a shot at all. And you're going to have those nights. We saw the 2017-18 Rockets have one of those nights on just the worst occasion in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals against the Golden State Warriors, where that team misses 27 straight threes. I mean, just think, if you make 3 of those threes, that game wasn't too far. I mean, it wasn't too big of a discrepancy at the end. The Houston Rockets, they're changing history and taking that back-to-back title away from Golden State back in 2018. If just a couple of those threes fall positively towards the Houston Rockets, they get better variance from that standpoint. But that's what you're just going to live with when it comes to the advantage you have with threes. If you have an edge in that category, I mean, the Celtics, they clearly have an edge when it comes to volume and their percentage on the floor. If you have an edge within the analysis of stats, right? You have the probable, if you have probability, right? If you have an edge within the probability, you have to go and take it. That's just what it is. And that is just the end of the story. I mean, that to me, it's very interesting, the conversation that society, the public will have about three-point shooting, because people act as if there is a debate. There's no debate. There's no debate when it comes to should we shoot more or less threes. You want to shoot more. I will say here's, I guess, the debate when it comes to the Celtics is, do they shoot way too many threes? Do they shoot way, because they're first in threes and last in twos. Do they, is their margin too wide between 2-point attempts and 3-point attempts? That's certainly a conversation. I understand that. But when it just comes to the classical basketball side, the traditional side of basketball, where we call it traditional, back in the 1980s, 1990s, you went more down inside the paint, worked inside the post. You relied more on centers and big men to work inside the post to get your points. Back in that day and era, there's no debate between that style of basketball and today's style of basketball. Which one's more efficient for winning? It's today's style of basketball, 100%. That doesn't mean there aren't more nuances within the game of basketball. You might have guys on your team like, say, Marcus Smart the last 9 years on the Boston Celtics, where some of his play on the offensive end of the floor, it wasn't just about shooting 3-point shots. It was about facilitating for others, making hustle plays, going in for offensive rebounds. And it's about sometimes putting players in the best position to win. We saw the last 9 years with Marcus Smart, when he took a high number of threes or a high number of attempts, the Celtics lost. When he didn't, the Celtics often won. The records were very stark. It was all laid out there on paper, really, I should say, on graphics back then. And that, from that standpoint, that illustrates some of the nuances of the game of basketball, where if you have a player like Marcus Smart, maybe he isn't a 3-point sniper who needs to be throwing up shots every single night. He just needs to work within the flow of the offense. Now, that still exists within the game of basketball. However, you still want to be taking a high volume amount of threes. You still want to have some sharpshooters on your roster, and that's just the bottom line when it comes to today's era of the NBA. If you don't have shooters on your roster, good luck winning, because you're going to be facing teams who are going to be shooting a high volume of threes. And if you're going to try to match them with twos, tough twos going down inside the paint, that's not going to work. That's just not going to work whatsoever. And there's, from my perspective, there's really no debate when it comes to all of this. There really just is none. But go ahead, Andrew.
And like having Marcus Smart on your team and him playing his role and not shooting a lot of threes, he's the guy that wins you games when you don't shoot as well as you want, because he's got that
exactly
factor. He brings that defensive edge. So when you're not shooting well, he allows you to be like, wow, I'm not shooting well, but I can still win on the defensive end. I mean, the Celtics went on like 2 8-0 runs in the first half today in Phoenix. Another 15-4 in the second quarter. It's like, yeah, they're scoring, but defensively they're holding teams. You know what I mean? So if you miss shots, it's so imperative that you don't let it impact the defensive end. And guys like Marcus Smart, guys like Kevin Garnett, they keep you focused on defense, and then gives you a good defensive possession, which then leads down to the offensive end, where you have, maybe you're coming off a turnover, a missed shot. Now you have spacing. Now you have guys on defense kind of out of rotation. They don't know where the guy's at. And now you can knock down threes. So those guys are still so valuable. But I will say, it's like, why not have a guy like that also can shoot threes? So
Right, right. And
It's like,
that's kind of the conversation with basketball nowadays is like there are too many guys who are now 6'9", 6'10", who can dribble and shoot.
yeah,
I mean, if you're 6'9", 6'10", you can't dribble, can't shoot, well, there's plenty of guys out there who can at that size. And that also brings up the conversation of the Boston Celtics and how they can win in multiple different ways. This was from earlier today, released by NBA University, the Boston Celtics and their most used lineups. I mean, you look at this, first of all, the lineup of death, supposedly the lineup of death used the most, my negative 2.2 net rating in there. But you see some of these other lineups, that plus 27 lineup, Pritchard, White, Tatum, Hauser, Cornette. You really would not expect that out of a lineup yet. Plus 27 net rating, probably a little bit smaller of a sample size. However, this is the most used lineups. But just examining this for a second, obviously, NBA University asks takeaways. My takeaway from this is the Celtics can beat you in multiple different ways. There's some double big lineups in here. There's some more small ball oriented lineups within this orientation and combinations of Celtics lineups. And I'll point this out. The Celtics, the fact they're a negative net rating with their seemingly best lineup, that gives me some confidence that there's more to be had with this team. I mean, think if you're putting up those kind of net ratings behind your best lineup, you're in a pretty good spot because you're expecting your best lineup to play some of your best brand of basketball. And if these other lineups are really the lineups playing the best brand of basketball, well, you have a good backup for your original lineup, but that lineup even has another level to go up to. That's what I kind of see with this list is the lineup at the top, they have another level to achieve. And if they can achieve that, and the Celtics are going to be really tough to beat from the standpoint of they can beat teams in multiple ways. But from your guys' perspective, just looking at this, what are some takeaways from this list? We'll start with you, Griffin.
I think it's just the standpoint of like, look at that list. That's like a lot of we've had a lot of concern about the Boston Celtics bench. Look how many bench players are in there. And it shows you how strong we are on just every different asset, you know, like it's not just one or two players. It's not just our starting five. It's Luke Cornett's in there, Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard. And I think obviously you might see eventually, quote me if I'm wrong, but I think a hot take is you might eventually see Shireman on that list once he develops more. But the Boston Celtics can get you in so many different ways, kind of what you already said, Seamus. And it's not just one or two guys. It's not just their starting five. It's those other three players that could affect the game as well.
And
Yeah,
you, Andrew, what are some of your takeaways?
yeah, I completely agree with Griffin, and also like the fact that Shireman, he's not even on this thing, and he can also add a impact. That's important to mention too. But I think that, well, for one, I'm no surprise that Cornette's got that plus 27 rating because he is a dog. He got up today, like impressive, but he's just a dog, and he brings that energy every game. But from a lineup perspective and just this graphic, I really think that one, it speaks to their depth, but also just speaks to the, like, if I'm an opponent and I see this, I don't want to play these guys. I don't want to come out, and every single second you see a new guy subbing in that's going to impact the game on a winning level. It's like, man, how can I sustain that for 48 minutes? You know, how do I give a consistent effort when I just have guys coming off the bench continuously supporting the starting cast? It just is mentally debilitating for another opponent. So this graphic just speaks volumes, and it shows why the Celtics are winning the way they are.
Yeah, and I love what you guys mentioned about the bench within this graphic here, because that has been a point of the conversation, or the point of conversation for the Boston Celtics all year, is how well is that bench playing for the season, and what are you getting off your bench? We have had rough nights. We've seen rough nights with the Boston Celtics where their bench just isn't hitting yet. When you look at the end of the season and where these net ratings are, I mean, it's very impressive what the Celtics have been able to do with some of their bench pieces alongside some of their starters, because I mean, quite frankly, this is one of the most expensive teams in NBA history at the top of this roster. And we see a team tonight like the Phoenix Suns. I mean, they're one of the most expensive teams in NBA history as well. And first of all, they're the one of the most expensive teams to be the 11 seed in the Western Conference. That's just that has to hurt for Matt Ishbia and all the Phoenix Suns fans out there. But that team harboring all those big contracts, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, they made a mistake rounding up those three $50+ million deals because you see the rest of the roster. Look how much they rely on Iguodala. Look how much they rely on Ryan Dunn, two rookies, to play within the rotation. At the end of the season, they're relying on Colin Gillespie, former Denver Nugget, to get a run in with them and play well. I mean, seriously, it's unfortunate where this Phoenix Suns team is because at the top of their roster, I should say, because a couple of years ago, 2021, it looked like they were on the rise. Now you have three guys at the top of your roster you can't rely on for leadership and consistency when it comes to health and playing alongside each other and motivating the rest of the team. And then the other pieces of that team just they're not they don't really mesh well together in any sense whatsoever. And that's where the Phoenix Suns, they tried the method of putting all of your money, right, as essentially as a franchise or really the salary cap into the starters, right, into the stars at the top of the roster. That's what the Celtics have done. The five starters, I mean, it's a big five essentially with the Boston Celtics. Derek White, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I mean, that's nearly a big five for the Boston Celtics. And you're bringing guys off the bench, Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, Al Horford, those guys. And they're less expensive, but the fact they've been able to bring those players off the bench, have that talent off the bench, says a lot about really Brad Stevens up in the front office. And of course, Wick Grosbeck, now the former owner of the Celtics, still around the building. Who knows what's really going on there? We saw Bill Chisholm at the game. We'll get into that in a second here. But we see with the Boston Celtics, they're a phenomenal team. They played a team who's just as expensive as them tonight, and look at the results: a 20-point win for the Boston Celtics, and that graphic surely shows some of the bench help the Boston Celtics get on a nightly basis when we would otherwise think maybe the bench is a little thin because of how much the Celtics spend at the top of the roster. Well, that just really hasn't been the case from when we look at the net ratings with all of the lineups. But I will say, tonight at the Garden, a lot of legends were out there. We see Paul Pierce, some former teammates, James Posey, Sam Cassell, and Paul Pierce. Sam Cassell, of course, on the coaching staff for the Boston Celtics, chatting it up before the game. All of them were members of the 2008 Celtics, of course. So Paul Pierce in the building tonight, along with James Posey, Sam Cassell on the coaching staff of the Boston Celtics. David Ortiz, he was in the building as well tonight, as you see from the Celtics account. Paul Pierce, David Ortiz, some Boston sports legends from the 2000s, the 2010s. Paul Pierce, The Truth, and Big Poppy, David Ortiz. Always got to love them. They were in house tonight for the Boston Celtics. And of course, Paul Pierce meeting Bill Chisholm, catching up with new Celtics owner Bill Chisholm. This coming from Cam Tabatabaie. Shout out to our guys. And let's go back to this graphic real quick. Yeah, shout out to Daniel Donabedian on that one, as you see Paul Pierce in the building. But yes, he was talking with Bill Chisholm before the game. And hey, guess who else met Bill Chisholm tonight? Our guy Sam Hauser. And I'll point out here, maybe Sam Hauser trying to get a little, looking a little happy there around the owner. I wonder why, Sam, because looking at this payroll moving forward, Sam Hauser, if you're looking at any contract on that Celtics roster going, which one could they wheel and deal? Maybe it's that extension kicking in next season for Sam Hauser. Just saying, might want to get close with the owner, right? Have a good relationship with the owner. This is what I'm talking about, Griffin. This is what I'm talking about at the end of the day. But one more thing, a couple more things here tonight before we're heading towards the closeout of the show. Actually, let's show this one first. Let's show this one. So this is most points in Celtic history. Just going back on the Jaylen Brown point, 14th all time. You see Jason Tatum there in 9th. John Havlicek, first overall. Second, Paul Pierce. Then you have Larry Bird, Robert Parrish. Who thought? I mean, Robert Parrish. The longevity of Robert Parrish's career certainly put him on this list. But Robert Parrish, number 4. Kevin McHale, Bob Cousy, Sam Jones, Bill Russell. And then you have all the guys we mentioned earlier: Tatum, Cowens, JoJo White, the St. Louis native, Bill Sharman, Tommy Heinzen, Jaylen Brown to move to that 14th spot tonight. And then Antoine Walker and Donnie Nelson down there at 16. So just wanted to flash that up on the screen for a second. But this was the second one we were going to look at here as we're going to look ahead here for the Boston Celtics before we close out this show. The Celtics top offenses in NBA history. So you see here, this is points per possession. The Boston Celtics this season, they're fourth all time, which ironically enough, last season's Boston Celtics club is first. This season's Cleveland Cavaliers squad is second, and then you have 2024 Indiana from last season. Then you have this season's Oklahoma City just behind Boston this year as well, and then you have 2025 Denver, 2023 Sacramento. But we have worse defenses in NBA history. I mean, look, first of all, this kind of gives out the point of view of the game has changed. The game has changed. Look at all the years here. The years are all 2020s, 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 2020s. Worst defenses, top offenses in NBA history. And this just shows you the level of optimization that goes on in the NBA to get the most points per possession. As you see, all these teams, it's 2023 and beyond. 2023 Sacramento, regarded as one of the best offenses in NBA history. Well, that wasn't going to last long because after 2023, we put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams above Sacramento. I mean, that's where we are in NBA history right now, and that just shows you the statistical optimization within the game of basketball. But you see, the worst defenses in NBA history, Washington sitting on there. 2025 Phoenix is actually on there as well. But 2025 Washington on the worst defenses. So the next game coming up on the Celtics schedule will be the Washington Wizards as we look ahead with this Boston Celtics club. So one of the worst defenses in history of the NBA will be meeting one of the best offenses in history of the NBA coming up on the horizon at the TD Garden. We, of course, saw Phoenix on that list there tonight. 20-point win over the Phoenix Suns. But looking ahead to that Wizards game after tonight's game against the Suns, what do you expect to see out of the Boston Celtics in that game? Griffin, we'll start with you.
First of all, I got to say, Ortiz up there. You got the Ortiz signed ball right here. Big on Ortiz. Just had to mention that. David Ortiz, favorite player of all time in sports, and my personal idol. Just gotta throw that out there.
Let's show them again. They're legends.
Can we give him a round of applause? Like what the man probably went to the Red Sox game and then right after went to the Celtics game.
We need Ortiz to talk to Devers right now and teach him how to hitting that DH hole. Anyways, that's for the baseball discussion.
Yeah, for sure. No, but ultimately
talk to David on that one.
We'll talk to David.
Yeah, we'll call him up. We know David personally. But anyways, I just think honestly, like this next game, you gotta blow them out. Like I feel you'll see a lot. What day is this on by any chance?
Let's see. Let's go to the schedule real quick. Just pulling it up here. I believe it should be probably 2 days from now. I'm going to go ahead and say it's Sunday, April 6th. So today's Friday, so Saturday off. Tomorrow the Final Four, of course, going on. Then Sunday, Celtics basketball back. Washington Wizards, Boston Celtics on Sunday. So 2 days from now.
I'm curious. All right, I don't think that's the day that the main Celtics play then. So we'll
be playing at 6 o'clock.
Okay, so I feel like you'll see your bench a lot. You'll see your bench a lot more play. So I feel like it's going to be kind of a closer game in a sense because I don't think that's when the G League playoffs is. So I think you'll see a lot of Shireman. I think you'll see some more Walsh, maybe some Torrey Craig. So I'm going to go as far to say is I don't think it'll be a huge blowout. I think you might see potentially see KP maybe getting a day off or somewhere along those lines. Like I said, I don't think we'll see the full lineup. So I don't think it has the potential to be such a high game. But ultimately, I think the Boston Celtics are still going to get it done. And I want to see them just execute on the offensive side of the ball, having Marcus Smart play Marcus Smart again. Always fun to play him with that new with the new Washington Wizards. Excited to see that. But ultimately, got to get it done on defense. And I'm excited. I want to see a good game. That's going to be another game where if you're not a diehard Celtics fan, you're not really going to watch it. But honestly, it's on the schedule, and I'm hyped for it. I will be cheering. I will be cheering.
Yeah, I think the game is gonna. I think the Celtics will, use their starters if they don't sit some of them, but I think it's just gonna, they're gonna get off. They're gonna find their rhythm. Maybe they'll play down to the Wizards level just for a little, and then they'll ratchet up, figure it out, and then they'll just find a groove and just kind of push them away, And then they're just gonna get a lead, and they're gonna give their bench players opportunities to play. And I just think it's not a game it's just not a game of concern, and
Yeah.
I think it will be good for bench guys to get some minutes, and it's gonna be a convincing. They're going to be winning no matter what. It's going to be a convincing win. And then, and I think we're just going to put our eyes for the Magic, I believe.
Might be a Baylor Shireman game.
Yeah. Why not? Why not him? Why not?
Griffin, what logo is on your sweatshirt right now?
Got the Nike on.
Okay.
What
We're
do you
safe. Okay, when you went across camera, I'm like, there's no. See, this is where it's like, okay, I hear it outside right now. I hear it outside. I hear it. The thunder. It's like they're messing. They're messing.
No, I will.
With everybody's vision around Boston. Like you got up and sat down. I'm like, is that an OKC logo? Am I tripping right now? Is Griffin wearing an OKC sweatshirt? See, Griffin, I'm gonna tell you this right now. You're wearing blue right now. OKC, you can't do it.
That is
Can't do it. It's too close.
Showed up too.
Too close. See.
We got
and he has a Celtics shirt underneath. That is the sign of a real fan.
Yeah, we always knew it. There was no doubt in mind.
I got
that. Is the sign of a real fan.
That's all I wear. That's all.
We are playing the Magic. We're playing the Magic, Knicks, and Wizards. All got blue in their jersey, man.
Listen. Listen.
Point.
I only wear Celtic stuff. I might wear. I have sweatshirts I'll put on, but. A secret about me. My favorite color is blue, but my second favorite color is green. So I got the green lights up there, and then I'm very superstitious. So on game days, the green lights are on, and then on off days, it's usually blue.
Nice.
It's how it is. It's how it is.
As long as you got that Celtic logo right next to the heart, it's all that matters.
Yeah, and then you got the Jason Tatum right there. I tell you, that's all I wear. I only wear Celtic stuff.
I completely understand. My favorite color,
red.
Yeah. Straight up. It's red, but it's like in an NBA sense, it's like throw it out. Philly, nope, throw it out. Toronto, throw it out. It's like Chicago, throw it out. I the red teams, throw them out.
Yeah,
straight up. That's why you got to see the STL on this cap, because otherwise, there's no red around here. There's no red for the NBA. I mean, there's no red scenario.
Lobsters are no longer red either.
See, yeah, main red claws, that would have done well with the red concept. But I'm all down with the green. It's like I'm same as you, Griffin, like where it's like second favorite color, easily green. Kelly green too. Celtic green.
Celtics green, yeah.
Celtic green. Not the Milwaukee Bucks forest green. None of that stuff. None of that stuff. That's awful.
Original.
I would hate to have that green.
This is different.
I would hate it. Here. But looking ahead, the Celtics, of course, do face a blue team. The Washington Wizards, who I don't know if the Washington Wizards got the memo or not, but it's not 2022 anymore. Chris Middleton, Jordan Poole, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, 2022, that team would be great.
Oh,
but it's
I would give them a Pistons role. I wouldn't say great, but I would say they would classify themselves in a Pistons.
Oh, sure. They would need an all-star. Okay, but I'm saying Chris Middleton, all-star. You could have other guys in there who slot into there as well.
I feel more of a Robin to the Batman, Chris Middleton. Giannis.
Yeah. Honestly.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, guys. There was just a ton of lightning outside, and I thought for a second, I'm like, I don't know, can you guys hear that? You guys hear that? The Oklahoma City Thunder. It's like, I don't want to hear it. But there's just a ton of lightning going on inside. I'm like, this means a big crack of thunder, right? That's just going to shake the floor. Nope, never happened. happen. But what did happen was this post-game show, and that's going to do it for us here tonight on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. As you guys see at the bottom of the screen, the Boston Celtics beat the Phoenix Suns 123-103. And let's see, what do we want to play on the outro tonight? I don't know. Can we just get any music going? Can we get any music? Can you guys hear this? I guess, yeah, let's do this. Rock? I don't know what Franco plays. Quick backstory. Our music last week got copyrighted at the end, so that's why you guys no longer hear the normal song. But hey, we'll play this song. How about this? I don't know. This is all right. It's all right. But that does it here for us on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Seamus alongside of me, Andrew Quinn and Griffin Aldridge. Thank you all for watching, and as I always say, go Celtics.